A mistrial in Michael Keetley's trial after the jury was unable to reach a verdict. Keetley is accused of killing 2 men and shooting 4 others after he was robbed and shot back in 2010. And detectives said at the time he was seeking revenge on the people he thought were responsible.
And now he's heading back to jail to await what comes next. 10 News reporter Phil Buck was in the courtroom today. Phil, what was the reaction when this came down?
Well, I mean, the families and the people who were directly impacted, they were upset. You know, I mean, they've been waiting a long time, 10 years almost, to get some closure in this case, and they didn't get it today.
Yeah.
I was sitting right in front of Richard Cantu when this all happened, and I met Cantu, you know, a couple weeks ago. He was one of the people that were shot that night. He was shot in the head. And I turned to him, you could see it on his face. You know, he was disappointed. He has been waiting for closure in this case. And it really was traumatic, I think, going through all of this all over again. He was called to testify, one of the people that was called to testify for the prosecution in this case. We have video from that. It was from earlier in the trial. That's him right there. You know, he lives with a disability because of the injuries that he suffered that day. He was shot in the head, as I mentioned. I shook his hand. You know, he can't even reach with his right hand to shake me. So he reaches with the other hand, and you could just see how disappointed he and the rest of his family were at the lack of closure. You know, this has had a huge impact on his life. His brother Frankie actually told me a couple weeks ago that this has been so hard having to go through this all over again, because if you think about it, after 10 years, as a family, you go through such emotional healing just to get to a point where you can live your life, and then to have to relive this all over again for the trial, a lot of those wounds are reopened, you know, and then to not have that closure at the end of it was really upsetting for a lot of them, and there were tears. It was emotional.
It's like being victimized twice.
Yeah, and it's not over. What's next?
Right, exactly. I mean, I think that now we have a mistrial. That means they start over from square one. The prosecution can and plans to retry this case, and they need to do that within the next 90 days. I'm going to have much more on that and what we can expect coming up at 6.
All right, Phil, thanks. We also spoke with a legal expert about all of this today. You're going to hear from him coming up at 5:30.